Anglican Communion, Mrs. Angela Ndukuba, has encouraged all women to develop a Christ-like mind and be selfless. And now to the news in details. After the Episcopal Synod of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion held at Basilica of Grace, Gudu, Abuja, some priests have been elected bishop and others translated, as announced by the Primate Church of Nigeria, His Grace, the Most Reverend Dr. Henry Ndukuba. The Venerable Nixon Enekeme is now bishop-elect for the Diocese of Niger Delta West, while Very Reverend Dr. Andrew Adebi as the bishop-elect for the Diocese of Okeogun. Also, the Right Reverend Olugbenga Odutan of Ajayi Crowther Diocese is now translated to Oyo Diocese. The Right Reverend Abiodu Oguyemi, formerly of Zaria Diocese, now translated to the Diocese of Ekiti Kwara, while the 7 bishops being translated will be enthroned in their new dioceses. The new elected will be consecrated after all procedures necessary are done.
We have elected new bishops for some of the vacancies within the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion. We have elected Venerable Nixon Enekeme as the new bishop for Niger Delta West Diocese, and Bishop Olugbenga Odotan for Oyo Diocese. He is going on translation. And Bishop Abiodu Oguyemi will now go to Ekiti Kwara Diocese. And the Very Reverend Dr. Andrew Adewale Adebi will be going to Okeogun Diocese. We will continue to pray for these servants of God. We have Venerable Nixon Enekeme and Very Reverend Dr. Andrew Adewale Adebi as fresh nominations, fresh elections, and who will be consecrated at the time which we will fix in the future, after we must have done the necessary procedures.
And in a bid to honor the life of the longest-serving monarch in the United Kingdom, the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, together with the British High Commission, has held a remembrance service to honor the memory and the life of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who passed on the 8th of September 2022 at the age of 96 years. Hundreds of people, including bishops and archbishops of the Church of Nigeria, were in attendance. Amongst other dignitaries were the Primate of all Nigeria and wife, His Grace, the Most Reverend Henry and Mrs. Angela Ndukuba, the UK High Commissioner to Nigeria, Katrina Lane. In his sermon, the Primate praised the life of the Queen and prayed for the repose of her soul.
We see that she must be remembered as a monarch whose life was spent purposefully in the service of God and her people. As a young princess, she pledged to spend her whole life to serve the people, whether that life be long or short. Indeed, God blessed her with longevity, and indeed, she was a hallmark of humble, patient, and dedicated service to the citizens of Britain and the whole world. To the very last of her life, she remained resolute in her service.
While in her address, Her Excellency Katrina Lane appreciated the Church of Nigeria for the thoughtfulness and recounted how Nigeria was close to the heart of the Queen. She believes King Charles III will continue in the good terrain.
To appreciate the church this morning for hosting us and for acting in solidarity as we mourn and grieve, but also celebrate the life of the late Queen Elizabeth II. We share as in UK and Nigeria the Anglican faith, so I was very happy to be invited this morning for this special service and to be able to say a few words. It's a great comfort to us to know that we are together in our sadness, but also in the celebration of somebody who inspired us here in the UK, Nigeria, the Commonwealth and the world. I think a continuation of that strong UK-Nigeria bond is there's a solid foundation, as I mentioned, through the Anglican faith. But King Charles III has visited Nigeria. He came in 2018. I know he reads with interest the telegrams I send back to London. So I'm sure that it will continue to go from strength to strength. And one of those foundations is that community brought through the faith, but also through the Commonwealth.
Moving on to other story, the primate of all Nigeria Anglican Communion, Most Reverend Dr. Henry Ndukuba, has asked the federal government of Nigeria to find lasting solutions to insecurity, fuel crises and inflation in the country. Primate Ndukuba spoke during his formal address at the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion at the St. Matthias House, Gudu, Abuja.
We are constantly under attack in our nation, and in some of our dioceses, churches have been destroyed. Let us say it pointedly that the increasing kidnapping of Christians and the invasion of Christian-dominated villages, so that this is not only on Christians, it is also affecting the Muslim communities. It is now clear that in some cases, some bad eggs in the military and our security agencies are collaborators in these inhuman acts. Cases where some ethnic groups spring unprovoked attacks on other citizens is inhuman and must be stopped. Factors breeding insecurity, such as porous national borders and the free flow of ammunition and firearms, youth unemployment, drugs, and blatant criminality must be tackled head-on. There is an urgent need to change the National Security Advisor and the security architecture of this nation. Law enforcement agencies will need to be better equipped and motivated. But let the truth be told. Our security agencies have been infiltrated by the enemies of the state, and those who have compromised must be purged. We therefore demand that these agencies of government be totally cleaned up without delay. We re-emphasize the urgent need for a lasting solution to the lingering abuses around fuel subsidies and the persistent oil theft and vandalism meted on our national oil infrastructure. We demand for more transparency and accountability by NNPC in the management of this key national wealth. Incidentally, while Saudi Arabia and other countries were declaring billions of gains made just within this year, NNPC Nigeria said nothing. Our economy has suffered so much setbacks, and the common man on the streets is terribly battered. The current unstable and exorbitant exchange rate of naira to dollar needs urgent attention.
He also frowned at the collapse of educational systems while commending INEC and Nigerians for their conduct during PVC registration, thereby urging that same spirit be reinvented during voting.
A case where a university student sits at home for a whole year is grossly unacceptable. It is a complete waste of life and the future of these young people. The declining standard in the educational sector demands a holistic solution. Specifically, funding interventions in our tertiary institutions must be revisited. We commend INEC for the conduct of the PVC registration and Nigerians for demonstrating maturity and political awareness through the massive turnout at different PVC registration centers across the country for the registration of their PVCs. Beyond getting the PVC, we must prepare to vote, however sacrificial this may demand. Once again, don't sell your vote and mortgage your future and the future of your children for a pot of red stew like Esau. Say no to money politics. Vote wisely. Vote rightly. Vote for character. Always remember what we have suffered in this country. Vote to change our sad story. The church is not apolitical nor partisan, but a godly conscience for the nation as well as the light and salt of the world.
Also, the President, Mothers Union and Women's Guild of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Mrs. Angela Ndukuba, while considering the theme of the just concluded Church of Nigeria Standing Committee, has encouraged all women to live a Christ-like life, developing the spirit of prayer and selflessness to attain favor from God. She gave these encouragement in her address during the Bishop's Wife meeting held at the Basilica of Grace Gudu, Abuja. She said they must submit to the will of God as this encompasses all things, even at this challenging time.
When we resolve to do the will of God rather than our pleasure and self-seeking, especially as challenging times, God is honored. The will of God in the life of a believer encompasses the totality of the human life. When we pray your will be done, it denotes total surrender to the will and purpose of God for our lives. And what is the implication of this thing to us as Christians, as a church and as a nation? 1. Prayer. We can enter God's presence in prayer, acknowledging the rulership of His kingdom in our lives, bringing our supplications and asking for His forgiveness. If we come to God in obedience and humility, He will hear us. 2. To help us to develop a Christ-like mindset, the earthly leaders should develop and imitate the mindset of Christ, which is that of selflessness, compassionate, righteousness, decentralized, humility, service to mankind, love, and peace. 3. Mission, evangelism, and discipleship. This should be the core task of every Christian in line with the Great Commission given to man and the church as large. Our lives should draw souls into God's kingdom. Fourth, church as a light of the world. The believers should let their light shine before men, both those within and outside the church. The evils of the present-day Nigeria should not overcome the church, but the church.
Thereafter, the women of the Diocese of Abuja also appreciated the primate's wife and was presented with gifts for her motherly role to the women of the diocese and also celebrating her birthday. And still to come, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, has promised to keep working the church in Nigeria and to keep promoting freedom of worship in the country. He made the promise at the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion Standing Committee in a goodwill message read by Minister of Youth and Sport, Sunday Dari, on the theme of the Standing Committee. President Buhari said he hopes the will of God will be done.
I wish to inform you that this government will continue to support the church and the freedom of worship. We will continue to work with the Nigeria Interreligious Council, NIREC, on issues about religion. I encourage you all to keep praying for Nigeria, our dear country. As we look forward to the forthcoming elections, we must pray and hope for God's will to be done. It is in seeking and wielding the will of God that His kingdom can come here on earth.
Likewise, the President of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Archbishop Mike Oko, through her representative, Bishop David Akpami, appreciates the Anglican Church of Nigeria for being a strong voice in the Christian Council of Nigeria and have made great impact in socio-economic and spiritual development in Nigeria.
The Anglican Communion, in no doubt, is one church that has made great impact in both the socio-economic and the spiritual development of our country, Nigeria. It is also a strong voice in the Christian Council of Nigeria, CCN, which is one of the blocks of the Christian Association of Nigeria. So I say to you, it shall be well with you. And for your sakes, it shall be well with our nation and the world.
And still to come, Taraba State Governor Architect Darius Ishaku advised the church to give early advice to those in power. That story and others will come your way after this short break. Please stay tuned.
Northern California Archdeaconry of the Anglican Diocese of the West USA presents her Maiden Mothers Union and Women's Guild Conference with the theme Lesson Begins at Joppa, the Spirit of Dorcas. Date Saturday 15th to Sunday 16th October 2022 at All Saints Anglican Church, Sacramento. Speaker Mrs. Miriam Seeley. Keynote speaker Ne Patience Nwosu. Mama Umaye and Mama Aba Province retired. Chief host and Mrs. Lillian Orji, President Mothers Union and Women's Guild, Anglican Diocese of the West. Host Dr. Mrs. Florence Uba Ajoko, Vice President, Mothers Union and Women's Guild, Northern California Archdeaconry. God bless you as you join us. Jesus is Lord.
Thank you for staying tuned. For more on our top stories, please visit our website at acnntv.com or our social media platforms on facebook.com or youtube.com/acnntv. And to be up to date with our news and other programs, download the Avo TV app from Google Play Store. And you can also advertise your goods and services on ACNN TV. And moving on, the Taraba State Governor, Architect Darius Ishaku, speaking to members of the press, has advised the church to give early advice to those in power. Governor Ishaku, who was one of the awardees at the just concluded Standing Committee meeting of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, which held from 12th to 16th September 2022 at the National Secretariat of the Church of Nigeria, St. Matthias House, said the awards is an encouragement to do more.
Start early, particularly those of us in politics. I need to start early by advising us early, and they also need to point to us when we go wrong early, so that we can make corrections in delivering the benefits of democracy to our people. I find out that the church, they are very clear in their criticism, and most times they are very correct with their critique. And it doesn't go to the press like you people do. They tell us quietly, and it has been very useful. So I told them too, quietly, that they should be able to encourage us more by the quiet criticism they are giving us. It helps a lot. When I receive an award from Labour Union, it means a lot. When I receive an award from the church, it has capped it all. It's more than all the rest, because it means it's really an award coming from Almighty, because they are the beacon and the trust of the society. So I'm very elated, not only me, all of us that got the award on their behalf. We are very elated, and we'll do more than we have been doing.
And away from standing committee meeting, the Mothers Union and Women's Guild of the Anglican Diocese of Kwara has concluded her 47th annual Women's Conference. The conference was hosted by Christ the King Church, Geri Alimi, Kwara State. The women were beautifully dressed in their uniform, gracing the occasion as the church hall wore a different look. To the women, this event comes once yearly, hence the need to utilize every opportunity it has to offer. Speaking to the women, the Bishop of the Diocese, the Right Reverend Sunday Adewale, encouraged the women to be strong in the Lord, even as they shoulder the responsibility of raising godly children in this trying time, where moral values has degenerated, stressing that children are to be chastised and loved and not to be spared when they are misbehaving. In her charge to the women, the President, Mothers Union, Women's and Girls Guild, Mrs. Adewale, in her presidential address to the conference, decried the state of the nation. According to her, women must continue to pray for Nigeria and for God's mercy over the nation, stressing that God do not joke with the prayers of women, especially when they cry out to Him with a sincere heart. As she encouraged the women to be fully active in the forthcoming election, adding that women can no longer sit back and watch the future of their children being shattered by evil men and women. Mrs. Adewale also highlighted some of the salient contributions of the women organizations to the diocese. Worthy of mention is the ongoing construction of a church building and vicarage at Jimba Oja that is at the roofing level. The conference featured the following activities: seminar, pre-conference revival, medical checkup, health talk, Bible study, team exposition, opening and Thanksgiving services. And outside the shores of the country, Church of Uganda, in conjunction with the British High Commission in Uganda, held a special service of commemoration for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at St. Paul's Cathedral, Namirembe. The Right Reverend Wilberforce Luwalira, the Bishop of Namirembe Diocese, was the main celebrant, assisted by the Very Reverend Canon Jonathan Kisawizi, the Dean of the Cathedral. In his sermon, Bishop Luwalira commended Queen Elizabeth II for her dedicated service to humanity and living an exemplary life. The British High Commissioner to Uganda, Kate Eyre, attended the service and gave her remarks. She attended the service together with staff of the Commission and other invited guests. The government of the Uganda was represented by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, General Haji Abubakar, who made a special speech on behalf of the government. General Odongo praised the Queen, said she was an inspirational leader who cherished humility and respect. Recall that Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, the Most Reverend Dr. Stephen Kazimba, issued a statement on the death of Queen Elizabeth II of England. Speaking about this commemorative event, Her Excellency Kate Airy, British High Commissioner to Uganda, said, and I quote, "We mourn the loss of a great sovereign, and in honor of her remarkable reign and leadership of the Commonwealth today, we honor her. Her legacy and life are grateful for the warmth and kind messages of condolences we have received from all over Uganda during this period." End of quote. Dignitaries from the government of Uganda, Buganda Kingdom, diplomats, corps, politicians, representatives of civil society, among others, attended the service. And a study in the United States of America has revealed that with the pace at which Christians abandon their faith before the age of 30 were to accelerate beyond its current pace, America could no longer be a majority Christian nation by as early as 2045. According to findings of a new analysis by the Pew Research Center, Christians wouldn't just lose their majority status in America in this scenario. They will also be outnumbered by the religiously unaffiliated. The findings are based on work from the Pew Research Center, which projects religious composition in the United States under multiple switching scenarios for the first time, as part of a project which analyzes religious change and its impact on societies around the world. In the study, Pew highlights 4 hypothetical scenarios out of several possibilities to demonstrate how the U.S. religious landscape might change over the next half-century. The impact of younger Christian adults abandoning their faith without limitation was modeled in one of those scenarios, while the other 3 scenarios reflect varying degrees of religious disaffiliation. They all show Christians continuing to shrink as a share of the U.S. population. A Catholic nun serving in the country's Catholic Diocese of Malakal has said the first unified troops who graduated in South Sudan need to be guided by the spirit of peace for a successful mission. Graduating over 21,000 new troops that are to constitute a unified national army, police, and other forces of security is part of the implementation of the country's September 2018 revitalized agreement on the resolution of conflict in South Sudan. The ACI Africa senior Elena Balati said the priority task of these forces is to defend the lives of civilians, their property, and the country as a whole, hoping and praying that the troops will be guided by the spirit of peace in carrying out their duties, in fostering the spirit of peace in their service, encouraging them to live their national identity, but they must represent the identity of the nation as the nation's forces. Senior Elena also challenged the South Sudanese government to take into account the remuneration of the troops that graduated, saying if they are paid well and get enough to cover their needs, then even political leaders will benefit from having a strong army. And now to a recap of our major stories. After the Episcopal Synod of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion held in Abuja, some bishops elected and some were translated to fill vacant seats. Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, together with the British High Commission, honors late Queen of England in remembrance service. Plus, President Mothers Union and Women's Guild of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Mrs. Angela Ndukuba, has encouraged all women to develop a Christ-like mind and be selfless. And that's it on the news and the hour. Thanks for watching. I am Rachel Igunu.
In this lecture, we're beginning 2 successive lectures where we're looking at what happens